the Christian Institute had a group called SPROCAS, which was the study project on Christianity in apartheid South Africa. Do you know somebody else who's been involved in SPROCAS? Well, Steve and I were both in the sociology group of that, and so I got to know him through that. And he was then employed by the Black Communities Program, which was set up by Beyers Node. Well, not by Beyers, but Beyers helped to get funding for that. And so then one day, Steve and Bokwe Mafuna came to me and they said, we believe you know this method of Palafreri. We want to run a national literacy program all over South Africa in the Christmas holidays. This was about May in 1972. And so they wanted to do it over the long vacation. And they said, we want you to teach us this method. And I said, well, it's not a method you can teach. It's a whole process of, preparing materials, doing a survey, getting the right issues, preparing materials, and so on. So he said, well, fine, what do we need to do? So I said, I think it's going to be a process. I think it'll take us several months to do that. I think what we should do is have a workshop once a month, and then people go out and do it, and train a core group that can afterwards train other teachers and trainers. So he says, fine, he'd get them together. So he got 15 people together, 3 from each of the major cities in South Africa, and then we had this 1-week program every month from then until November. And it was a fantastic group to work with. They were some of the brilliant, most absolutely bright and most committed people I've ever in my life worked with. And we went through the whole process of how do you do the survey, how do you do the kind of codes, what makes a good code, what doesn't make a good code, preparing codes. And then each time they would go back and test out all the materials that we'd done so far. When they came back from the first thing had been around surveys and themes and the first general introduction, and they came back with stuff written on things that went right around 3 walls of a room. They had really done everything that you asked them to do. They did so thoroughly and so intensely, and then we came out with some of the wildest pictures, posters, to very, very, provocative of terrible things the police were doing and all that sort of thing. And so then we got into all sorts of discussions of, is this going to be possible to do this, and to discuss the whole thing of, would local people be, and the whole point of, you've got to go with the crowd. If they want to discuss this, you discuss it. If they're too scared to discuss it, you honor that, and all this kind of thing. So we did a lot on group dynamics, and so it was a fascinating thing.
What happened to the posters, do you know?
Some of them were sort of hidden and then were used much later. I don't know if we could find any of them now. Bokwe Mafuna is around somewhere. I saw him a couple of years ago. And then one group that might have them would be, what's that one, the group down in Natal, which Srini Moodley was with.
Naidu.
Umtapo, that group, yes, they might have some of those, because Srini was one of the most active ones in that.
Was he part of this?
Srini Moodley was in part of that group. Barney Pichana, Benny Kwapa, Sass Cooper, Johnny Easel. Oh, they were a fantastic group of people.
But what was happening at that time is that near November, December, many of them were starting to be interrogated.
Yes, a lot of them were interrogated by the police at that time. And then there was a huge rally in support of Frelimo. And a lot of them actually got arrested for that rally. They weren't arrested precisely because of the work that we were doing, but the people who were involved in that were involved in the Frelimo rally, pro-Frelimo. And so then many of them were arrested at that time. And it really began to be very awkward, to feel that you were getting people involved. They were always questioning them about the work with me, but they didn't question me at all. And so then at a particular point, yes, it just didn't seem possible that we were going to do anything.
But then Beyers came to you, others, what did Beyers say?
Well, Beyers thought that, he said to me, look, if you go on doing this, you're sure to be banned. And so is it really,
worth it, yeah.
What you should do it? Is it worth it at this point? And the head of at that time, the person who was the international president of the Grail was an Egyptian, and she was encouraging me to get out. And so at that point, I found suddenly that I could get an Irish passport. because my grandmother happened to be born in Ireland. Another person that I'd worked with a lot, Basil Moore, I don't know if anybody's mentioned him, he was a Methodist minister. He and Collins worked together a lot. And he was very interested in the whole black consciousness movement in the United States. And suddenly he was, he'd been followed a lot by the police, and so he decided to leave. And he found his grandmother was Irish, so he could leave. So I said to my mother, I wish one of my grandparents had been born in Ireland. She says, oh, as a matter of fact, my mother was. But she left when she was 2 years old. But the fact that she was born in Ireland meant that I could get an Irish passport. She was only born there because her father was in the British Army. And in fact, you could hardly find a worse reason for giving somebody an Irish passport. But it was the time of Conor Cruise O'Brien, who was very much supporting of the struggle in South Africa. And so he knew exactly what was going on. And so I got an Irish passport. And so...
So she booked her ticket to leave South Africa on a Friday, but left on a Thursday. Mm-hmm. And went to Malawi, where her mother and Jimmy Stewart...
Yeah, my sister and Jimmy
Stewart.
My sister and Jimmy Stewart were living there at the time.
And I
called my sister and I said, Joan, this is Anne. And she said, Anne who? But it was an amazing sense that of suddenly feeling, goodness, you're going into a world where nobody knows you at all.
Which is true.
Yeah, it was.
Which was 17 years of exile.
That was in 1970.
That was 1973.
73.
It was 73, yes, April 73.